Welcome back, fellow numismatists and coin enthusiasts. Today we're diving into something special that might be hiding in your pocket change or tucked away in an old collection. Two seemingly ordinary Jefferson nickels that command extraordinary prices in today's market. These aren't your typical rare coins from centuries past, these are modern-era treasures that passed through countless hands before their true value was recognized. So before you dismiss that jar of nickels sitting in your dresser drawer, you might want to hear about the 1963 and 1976 Jefferson nickels that have collectors frantically searching through their collections. Let's begin with the 1963 Jefferson nickel, a coin that tells a fascinating story of mid-20th century American minting and how small variations can create immense value. The year 1963 was eventful in American history, the height of the Cold War, the tragic assassination of President Kennedy, and a time when the Philadelphia Mint was producing Jefferson nickels at an impressive rate. Over 276 million nickels were struck that year at the Philadelphia facility alone, with millions more from Denver. With such high mintage numbers, you'd expect these coins to be practically worthless beyond face value, but you'd be mistaken. The 1963 Jefferson nickels story begins with the ongoing design that had been in circulation since 1938, featuring the profile of our third president on the obverse and his Virginia home, Monticello, on the reverse. Created by sculptor Felix Schlag, this design would remain largely unchanged until 2004. But what makes certain 1963 specimens so valuable lies in production anomalies and quality variations that occurred during this high-volume minting year. The most valuable variety of the 1963 Jefferson nickel is what collectors call the full steps specimen. On standard Jefferson nickels, the steps leading to Monticello on the reverse side often appear worn or indistinct, even on uncirculated examples. This happened because the design element was directly opposite Jefferson's head on the obverse, meaning the metal didn't always flow properly into the die during striking. A true, full steps, 1963 nickel will display 5 or 6 clearly defined steps on Monticello, with complete horizontal lines visible without interruption. What's remarkable is just how rare these properly struck specimens are. While millions were produced, the vast majority exhibit mushy, incomplete step details. The Philadelphia Mint's 1963 nickels, in particular, are notoriously difficult to find with full step details. In fact, population reports from major grading services revealed that fewer than 50 examples in mint state condition with full steps have been authenticated for the 1963 Philadelphia issue. This extreme rarity for what seems like a common coin creates a fascinating market dynamic. Let me put this in perspective with some actual market values. A typical circulated 1963 Jefferson nickel is worth exactly 5 cents, face value. Even in uncirculated condition, a regular 1963 nickel might fetch $1 to $5. But a 1963 Jefferson nickel graded MS-66, mint state 66, with full steps designation? That's an entirely different story. In recent auctions, these rare specimens have commanded prices between $5,000 and $8,000. And the few examples graded MS-67 full steps have sold for over $10,000. One particularly exceptional specimen, graded MS-67 plus full steps, sold at a heritage auction in 2019 for an astounding $15,600. That's a nickel worth more than 300,000 times its face value. What makes this even more intriguing is the possibility that undiscovered specimens still exist in circulation or in unsearched collections. Unlike ancient coins or famous era coins that receive immediate attention, the full steps designation wasn't even formally recognized by grading services until the 1990s. This means that for decades, these valuable nickels could have been sitting in collections, change jars, or even passing through cash registers unnoticed. The 1963 Jefferson nickel also has an interesting place in American numismatic history because it represents the end of an era in some ways. It was produced just before the massive coin shortages of the mid-1960s that would lead to the removal of silver from dimes and quarters and the implementation of mint marks on Philadelphia coins. The 1963 nickel was minted during a time when Americans still actively used and inspected their change, before clad coinage and modern banking practices changed our relationship with everyday currency. There's a fascinating technical aspect to why these full steps nickels are so rare, and it reveals much about the minting process. The Philadelphia Mint in 1963 was operating at high capacity, striking millions of coins daily. At such volumes, die maintenance wasn't always optimal. Dies would be used until they began to show significant wear, and worn dies typically couldn't impart the sharp, clear details needed for the Monticello steps to appear fully. Additionally, the striking pressure wasn't always consistent, and the relatively soft composition of the 5-cent piece, 75% copper, 25% nickel, didn't lend itself to capturing fine details as well as harder metals might. Another factor that makes the 1963 full steps nickel so elusive relates to storage and handling. Even if a nickel was perfectly struck with full step details, the soft copper-nickel alloy meant that even gentle contact with other coins in mint bags could quickly diminish those sharp details. Thousands of potentially perfect specimens likely lost their pristine steps before ever reaching circulation, simply from being tumbled together in mint bags during transport. For collectors, identifying a potential full steps 1963 Jefferson nickel requires careful examination under proper lighting, preferably with magnification. The steps must be completely separated by distinct lines running horizontally across the base of Monticello. Partial steps, where the lines are visible but interrupted, don't qualify for the premium designation. This distinction is crucial because the price difference between a regular mint state 1963 nickel and one with verified full steps is enormous. The condition spectrum for these nickels creates interesting valuation variations. A 1963 Jefferson in average circulated condition, say, fine to very fine, is worth only face value. In extremely fine condition, it might bring 50 cents to $1. Uncirculated examples without full steps might sell for $2 to $10 depending on quality. But the price curve rises exponentially when you reach the mint state with full steps category. MS63FS, mint state 63 with full steps $500 to $1,000. MS64FS, $1,200 to $2,500. MS65FS, $3,000 to $5,000. MS66FS, $5,000 to $8,000. MS67FS, $10,000 to $15,000. MS67 plus FS and above, $15,000 plus. This dramatic value difference makes the 1963 Jefferson nickel one of the most rewarding sleepers in modern U.S. coinage, a term collectors use for coins that appear common but have rare, valuable variants. There's also an interesting story about how these coins were rediscovered as valuable. In the 1990s, as grading services began standardizing the full steps designation, a few eagle-eyed dealers and collectors started searching through dealer inventories and bank rolls specifically looking for sharp 1963 examples. One legendary dealer reportedly found a MS67 full-step specimen in a $2 blue Whitman folder at a local coin show, a find worth thousands of times what he paid. Stories like this fuel the continuing hunt for these elusive coins. The enduring fascination with the 1963 full steps Jefferson nickel reminds us of what makes coin collecting so engaging: the thrill of the hunt, the attention to detail, and the possibility that extraordinary value might be hiding in the most ordinary places. It embodies the collector's dream that a life-changing rarity might still be discovered in pocket change or a forgotten collection. Now let's turn our attention to another modern rarity that's been hiding in plain sight, the 1976 Jefferson nickel. This coin comes from America's bicentennial year, a time when the U.S. Mint was producing special commemorative designs for the quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins. While the Jefferson nickel didn't receive a commemorative redesign, certain 1976 nickels have become highly sought after by serious collectors, and for very different reasons than our 1963 specimen. The 1976 nickel is fascinating because its value doesn't come from low mintage, quite the opposite. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 367 million nickels that year, and Denver added another 563 million. With nearly a billion nickels produced, they should be among the most common coins in existence. Yet specific varieties of the 1976 nickel, particularly those from the Philadelphia Mint, have become legendary condition rarities that command astonishing prices. To understand why, we need to explore some minting history. The 1970s were a challenging period for the U.S. Mint. The price of copper was rising dramatically, leading to experiments with aluminum cents in 1974, most of which were later destroyed. The Mint was also struggling with quality control issues as it ramped up production to meet the demands of commerce and the special bicentennial coins. These factors created the perfect storm for the 1976 Philadelphia nickel. What makes the 1976 Philadelphia nickel special is, once again, the full steps designation, but with an even more extreme rarity than the 1963. The 1976 P nickels, though they didn't carry a P mint mark yet, were struck with dies that were apparently overused or improperly prepared. As a result, finding a 1976 Philadelphia nickel with fully defined steps on Monticello is extraordinarily difficult, much harder than even the rare 1963 full steps. The statistics are staggering. According to the major grading services, fewer than 20 examples of the 1976 Philadelphia nickel have been certified with genuine full steps in mint state grades. That's an infinitesimally small percentage of the 367 million struck. This extreme condition rarity creates a fascinating market dynamic where an otherwise common coin becomes a legendary trophy piece for Jefferson nickel specialists. Market values for the 1976 nickel vary dramatically based on condition and step detail. An average circulated 1976 nickel is worth exactly 5 cents. Even in standard uncirculated condition, they typically sell for just $1 to $3. But a 1976 Philadelphia nickel with full steps. That's when things get interesting. A certified MS-65 full steps example can easily command $3,000 to $5,000. The few MS-66 full step specimens have sold in the $8,000 to $12,000 range. And in 2018, a single superb MS-67 full steps example sold for a mind-boggling $29,900, almost 600,000 times its face value. The 1976 D. Denver nickel tells a different story. While still challenging to find with full steps, it's considerably more common than its Philadelphia counterpart. A 1976 D with full steps might sell for $100 to $500 in grades MS-65-66, still impressive for a 5-cent piece but nowhere near the astronomical values of the Philadelphia version. What makes the 1976 Philadelphia full steps nickel so elusive? Numismatic researchers have developed several theories. One involves the hardness of the dies used that year. The Mint may have used softer die steel for the Philadelphia nickels, causing the dies to wear more quickly and lose fine details. Another theory involves the striking pressure used at the Philadelphia facility that year, possibly set too low to fully bring up the step details. Some experts believe it could be related to the composition of the planchets, blank coins, themselves, which might have had slight variations in hardness or alloy composition. There's also an interesting historical angle to consider. The 1976 bicentennial year saw the Mint focused intensely on producing special commemorative coins with dual dates, 1776 to 1976, for the quarter, half dollar, and dollar. With attention diverted to these special issues, quality control for the ordinary nickels may have suffered. Additionally, with copper prices rising, there were discussions about potentially changing the composition of the 5-cent piece, which may have affected production decisions. For collectors, the hunt for a 1976 full steps nickel often becomes a lifetime quest. Many Jefferson nickel specialists have examined thousands of 1976 Philadelphia nickels without finding a single specimen with complete step details. The few examples that do exist typically came from original mint sets or were found in bank-wrapped rolls that somehow escaped circulation and excessive handling. Identifying a potential 1976 full steps candidate requires careful examination under magnification. The 6 steps leading up to Monticello's entrance must be clearly defined with complete horizontal lines. Even specimens that appear to have sharp details at first glance often fall short upon closer inspection, with interrupted lines or partial steps that don't qualify for the premium designation. There's a fascinating psychological aspect to the value of the 1976 nickel as well. Unlike ancient coins whose rarity comes from age and historical significance, or famous error coins with obvious mistakes, the 1976 full steps nickel appears completely ordinary to the untrained eye. Its value lies entirely in subtle details that only specialists can fully appreciate. This creates an interesting, insider knowledge, dynamic in the collecting community, where those who understand these condition rarities have a significant advantage in finding undervalued specimens. The condition spectrum for 1976 nickels creates one of the steepest value curves in American numismatics. Circulated, face value, 5 cents. Uncirculated without full steps, $1 to $3. MS-63 with full steps, $500 to $1,000. MS-64 with full steps, $1,000 to $2,500. MS-65 with full steps, $3,000 to $5,000. MS-66 with full steps, $8,000 to $12,000. MS-67 with full steps, $25,000 to $30,000. What's particularly intriguing is that discoveries are still being made. As recently as 2019, a collector reviewing old mint sets found a previously unrecognized 1976 Philadelphia nickel with full steps that later graded MS-66FS and sold for over $10,000. Stories like this fueled the continuing hunt through bank rolls, dealer inventory, and old collections. There's also an interesting collecting strategy that has developed around these rare modern nickels. Some forward-thinking collectors have begun assembling sets of high-grade Jefferson nickels from years with known striking problems, anticipating that the market will continue to recognize and reward extreme condition rarities. The 1976 Philadelphia nickel stands at the pinnacle of this category. For those wondering if they might have hit the jackpot with a 1976 nickel, I recommend checking any examples in your collection. Pay special attention to nickels that came from original mint sets or uncirculated rolls. Under strong lighting and magnification, examine the steps of Monticello carefully. If they appear unusually sharp and complete, it's worth having the coin evaluated professionally. Remember that the difference between a common uncirculated 1976 nickel worth $2 and a full steps example worth thousands lies in these minute details. The 1976 Jefferson nickel also tells us something about how the hobby of coin collecting has evolved. In earlier decades, collectors focused primarily on completing date and mintmark sets, with condition being secondary. Today's advanced collectors often pursue condition rarities and varieties within single issues, spending more on one exceptional specimen than past collectors might have spent on an entire collection. This shift has created a sophisticated market where knowledge of production characteristics and grading nuances can be immensely valuable. So before you cash in that jar of coins or pass along that old collection without examination, remember the lesson of these valuable modern nickels. Take the time to look closely, learn the details that matter, and you might just find yourself holding a 5-cent piece worth thousands. Until next time, keep hunting those treasures, and I'll see you in the next video.